After a while, Licht and Ferris were running away from a huge dark monster. He strikes, but the boy and the girl deftly dodge. The fairy, which is Iris's ability, flies towards the monster and immobilizes it. Licht says that's to be expected. So many monsters never appear in human territory. If the Iris fairies hadn't rescued them, they would have been dead by now. The territory of the demons, which occupies 70% of the earth, and now they are on its eastern part. Ferris turns to Licht and asks him about the castle ahead, and if it really belongs to the demon lord. The young man gives a positive answer. They are sneaking among the trees. Licht says that he has heard rumors about this place, but he had no idea that the castle was so big. He remembers that all the warriors of the guild never returned alive from this castle. Licht goes and thinks that he has not even come close to this castle yet, but his body is already holding him back. Licht says that Dorothy and the others should have already made an attack on the castle, so he thinks now is the time for their move. Ferris says she understood. Suddenly, the girl notices something glowing in the distance, and then this something pierces Ferris right in the heart. The girl falls unconscious. Licht runs up to her and calls her name. Licht thinks she was killed from such a great distance and so quickly. The enemy's reconnaissance squad is on a completely different level than in Dystopia. He looks around and realizes that they seem to have stopped attacking. Apparently, the shooter died immediately after the murder of Ferris. Apparently, the Ferris skill called bitterness worked. Thanks to this ability, all the damage that Ferris receives is transferred to the attacker. Licht uses the resurrection of the dead to revive Ferris. Ferris, waking up, says that it was unexpected. She wonders if this attack has hurt the girl. Licht says the girl covered for her. The girl says that this time the attack was too sudden, so there's nothing she can do. She asks Licht to be on guard. After a while, Ferris and Licht move on. The young man thinks that they are not being attacked. The enemies should be confused right now. This is their chance. Licht had to use resurrection. It would be good if the enemies didn't find out about it. If they understand how bitterness works, then it will be very easy to resist this ability. In any case, the young man would not like to see Ferris dead again. The girl turns to the young man and asks what suddenly happened. Licht says that from now on, Ferris should not leave his side one step. The young man thinks that if necessary, he will protect her himself. Ideally, I would like the girl to use her ability on the Eastern Demon Lord, and for this to work, you need to hide his skill until the last moment. Ferris says that she certainly doesn't mind, because she and Licht are partners. The girl is embarrassed and says that she also wants to be around. Approaching the castle doors, Licht says that they do not know what enemies will be waiting for them, so he asks the young man to be on his guard. The girl grabs the Licht. At that moment, a huge man was shouting and asking what was going on here. The girl turned to Mr. Doba and said that she had come, and the girl was already in such a state. Doba said that, really, the enemies had already entered the castle. Luluka's intelligence abilities are among the best among all demons. He doesn't know who killed her like that, but he probably knew who he was aiming at. The girl turns to the gentleman and asks what will happen to the girl. The man says that he needs to leave her now, and later they will figure it out. The girl apologizes and says that she feels like she was killed in a strange way. The man says he thought so too. There are no signs of a battle in this room. The enemy may be very strong, but this girl couldn't die without fighting back. The girl is a Luluka, and she led an army of demons. Doba says that apparently, Luluka took damage immediately after the enemy's attack. The girl asks if it is possible that they have a demon who has the same abilities as her. Doba replies that it is unlikely, because these abilities cannot be one-in-one. But there is something different here. Suddenly, Doba turns around. He realizes that someone has entered the castle. He orders the girl and tells her to inform the others about Luluka's death. The girl says she understood. Doba also adds that it may not be useful, but just in case, she should warn His Majesty, the Demon Lord Garga. He then tells her that they will meet later, as soon as he is done with these scoundrels who have entered the castle. The girl runs away and wishes the man good luck. Doba pulls out his sword, which is the Sword of Disgust. He is able to accumulate and increase his power when she feels hatred, and now he is in the best shape. Meanwhile, Licht and Ferris had already entered the castle. Licht realizes that the invasion was successful. Dorothy's spirits have already surrounded this perimeter. Then Licht is hailed from the side. Doba says that the young man and the girl are very brave, since they decided to invade the territory of their castle. The young man turns to Ferris and asks her to stand behind him. The man says his name is Doba. He says he sees that the spirits of the intruders are everywhere here, and whether they will disappear if he breaks the young man into pieces. Licht says that who knows and offers him a try. Suddenly, the young man next to Doba says that how dare Licht talk to Mr. Doba. Doba orders the young man to be silent. Then he turns to Licht, calling him a man, and says that he asked for it. The man lunges and attacks Licht, but the young man managed to block his lunge. Doba says that he realized that the young man knows how to handle a sword. He says that Licht is not like all the other people who dared to come to this castle. However, Licht is not strong enough to defeat Doba, so only death awaits him. And now he will show Licht what strength means. Licht barely blocked this lunge. Doba asks what happened and why the young man can't fight back, or is it really more important for him to protect this girl? Ferris asks Licht for forgiveness and says that it won't be a big deal if she dies. Licht says that they will save the power of Ferris for the Demon Lord. Now they just have to deal with these small insects. Doba says that, apparently, Licht underestimates them. One of their assistants, Doba, breaks past Licht and goes to attack Ferris. The young man screams that the girl is finished. At this moment, the second assistant of the prey, an archer, shoots an arrow directly at Ferris, and the first young man delivers many cutting blows with a blade. The girl falls unconscious. The young man smiles and says that Ferris is weak, and next time she will know how to invade someone else's territory. The young man runs to Dob, but suddenly dies from the same wounds as Ferris. Dabu sees this and says that they have received exactly the same damage. He asks Licht if this girl was able to repel their attack, or if the attacks fight back themselves if someone wounds her. Doba says that apparently he is right, and now it is clear that he killed Luluka. He says that who would have thought that she would be overtaken by her own attack. He starts to give more and more on Licht. However, suddenly his hands start shaking and the sword falls out of his hands. The man does not understand what is happening, and blood suddenly starts flowing from his eyes. The man falls to the floor. Licht approaches Ferris and uses the resurrection ability. The girl opens her eyes, apologizes to the girl, opens her eyes, apologizes to the boy for the fact that she died. Licht says it's his fault that he couldn't protect her, because after all, he can't handle 3 opponents at once. At that time, Doba, who is still alive, asked the young man what he had done. He asks if the young man really used a strong poison, for which there is no antidote. Licht is going to tell him, but he says that if he tells Dob about it, he will inform his demon lord about it. He sighs and says he can hide as much as he wants. Licht realizes that, apparently, it was the Iris fairies who poisoned him. Ferris says the fairies arrived much later than she thought. Licht says they need to join Rose as soon as possible. The girl says she understood. At this moment, a girl bursts into the room of the demon lord Gargi and says that she does not feel the soul of Mr. Prey. Garga says that he knows this and replies that things have taken an interesting turn of events. In the castle of the Eastern Demon Lord, Garga sat on the throne. Doba, the commander of the general's army, died. Luluk was also gone. This time, the opponents came prepared. He thinks he is more concerned that there is no other demon lord here. That is, Aria. First you need to deal with small insects. In the last few hours, he realized that he was feeling the excitement of the upcoming battle. Garga felt bored, killing every time adventurers who decided to conquer his castle. He had the idea of trying to take over the world, but he found it too troublesome. Anyway, beating up the weak is not his style. Day after day, the demon lord felt boredom and longing. Such peacemaking days did not suit his bubbling blood at all. Garga felt bored, killing adventurers every time. Garge, who had too much free time, was offered an alliance. Instead of responding to the letter, Garga decided to launch a magical attack. As expected, following Garga's attack, the opponents responded in kind, thereby provoking hostility. Garga realized that he had finally found a suitable enemy for himself in these last 100 years. The girl asks the gentleman if everything is going to be alright. If the demon lord is really being attacked by another demon lord, then perhaps it's the one that died 100 years ago. Garga tells the girl not to worry. The great demon lord was buried 100 years ago, but she couldn't come back to life. He asks the girl to go and hide, because she shouldn't fight. The girl says that she will also fight them, so it's not worth it for the demon lord to say such things. Garga says that if the girl stays with him, then what should they do next? Because where are the guarantees that they will be useful? The girl says that maybe he's right. Garga asks her to wait. Suddenly, a lot of bats appear right above them. The girl screams at the gentleman to take care of himself, but the mice began to fly right at her, and then they completely enveloped her body. Garga sat on the throne all this time and watched the mice devour the girl's body. Then he notices that the girl's body has been taken under control. She goes to his throne and starts howling. Garga remembers her smiling face, and then uses a demonic incision and executes the girl, chopping off her head. Rose comes out to him and asks if it is not cruel to her servant, and then says that. However, it is not for her to teach him. Garga looks at Rose and says that the vampire got out. The girl says her name is Rose. She also tells Garga that he will regret underestimating their demon lord. The man says he knows it. In any case, he wanted to fight her. not her ward. He says that he will deal with the girl quickly in order to dispel boredom. Then he looks at Rose and says that he realized that the girl also does not know where her demon lord is now. The girl says that Garga is just a scoundrel. Her fingers lengthen and attack the demon lord right next to his neck. He asks if the girl really thinks of turning him into her slave. She asks how he knows this. Then she wonders if maybe the demon lord Garga can read minds. She wonders how he can be defeated. The girl continues to attack him. Garga asks if the girl is going to give up. He was right to have fun today. He says it was in Rose's best interest to just wait for her demon lord to arrive. The girl continues to attack him and asks him to be quiet. At one point, the girl stumbles and falls. Garga says how about giving up already, because he understands that Rose is not fighting at full strength. He says it's not in his best interest to bully weaklings. Rose thanks him for his concern. The man steps right on the girl's body. He says that if she doesn't start fighting seriously, he will kill him. He asks you not to upset him because of such stupidity. The girl gets to her feet and says that she understood. Then her eyes light up with a white light, and then she transforms into a huge beast. Garga sees this monster and says that he will definitely be able to have fun now. He then thinks that he cannot read her thoughts because the girl acts solely with animal instincts. Rose attacks the man, but he deflects her attack and grabs the monster by the neck. He pushes the monster away and asks it to disappear. He looks at his wound and says that the girl is scratching right like a wolf. He uses his demonic slash ability and cuts off the monster's paw. Rose attacks the demon lord with her other paw, and then sinks her fangs into the man's other arm. She injects poison into him with her fangs. Garga clucks and cuts off his hand. He then uses the attack ability in the dark and hits Rose right in the fangs. They break, and the rose itself flies away a long distance. It's hard for her to get up, and Garga says that, apparently, the girl is finished. He decides to finish her off and attacks her right in the chest, killing the girl. He looks at the girl's corpse and says that she is a troublesome opponent. Suddenly, Aria calls out to him and asks him if he had fun. Garga asks the girl when she managed to appear here. Aria replies that she has been here ever since he was playing with her rose. She says Garga was so hot that she got a little jealous. Garga says that the girl should not worry, because he has such manners. He doesn't look down on her, but the girl didn't get involved in their fight. He wonders why. He looks at his wound on his only arm and thinks that he hopes that he will have the strength to control only with his right hand. Then he says he understood. The girl in front of him is the demon lord Aria. He says that she has decent servants, so the man is even envious. The girl says she hasn't even introduced herself yet. Garga says that he knows that the girl is now preparing a magical attack. He asks the girl not to be shy and says that she can attack him with a calm heart. Aria frowns and asks not to say another word. Garga thinks that with this provocation, he will try to weaken her attention a little and take her by surprise. He thinks it should work, even if it's a demon lord in front of him. Aria says that Garga should be cured, and then asks why she shouldn't just use healing magic. Aria asks if Garga really thinks she will fight against the young man when he is in such a state. She says she's not that tactless. A man uses the healing ray ability to heal himself. The girl asks if he is ready to start. Garga heads to the attack and uses his demonic slash ability. Aria is smiling a wild smile, and her eyes are shining. Aria uses her time binding ability and everything around her freezes. The girl calmly approaches Garga. He asks what is going on and why time has slowed down. Aria says Garga doesn't have to ask. He should just know that she controls time and space. She decides to demonstrate to him the way her abilities work and cuts off Garga's finger. The man is surprised, because he didn't even notice what happened. He thinks that the girl really had the intention to chop off his finger because he felt it. In any other situation, he would have been able to dodge, but not now. The demon lord Garga realizes that he can't even move. The attack is much faster than his thoughts. He can't even think of a counterattack because he doesn't even have a chance to dodge right now. He uses 2 spikes to attack, but the girl notices them in front of her face and says that he almost hit, and then slowly deviates to the side, and the spikes fly past. Garga realizes that he tried to launch 2 spikes to pierce her eyes, thereby temporarily blinding her. The man asks if the girl really fully anticipated his attack and dodged. He says she has pretty powerful kinetic vision. Aria replies that it's not like that at all, and it's just the demon lord Garga is weird. Aria asks if he really didn't realize that in this space he won't be able to move as he pleases. Garga realizes that he is in slow motion. Aria says that the man finally got it. If he could escape from this space, then they would be able to fight one-on-one with dignity. But this is an unfulfilled desire. He realizes that he died the moment he showed the girl his back. Garga says that in that case, he will have to kill her right here. Aria says that's exactly what it is. The man uses his demonic incision ability. Aria thinks that Licht and the company will come here very soon, so it's time for her to finish, because she doesn't want her charges to see this. The girl immediately finds herself behind the man's back and uses her abilities, destroying the young man's body piece by piece. Suddenly, Licht and Ferris enter the room. The young man asks if the battle has really ended already and so quickly. Aria says they're a little late. It's all over now. Licht says he is glad that everything is okay, and then sees a dead Rose. Licht looks at the dead girl in horror. Aria asks why the young man is fumbling, because he should resurrect her faster. The young man uses the ability to resurrect the dead. The girl regains consciousness when Aria strokes her face. Rose sees the Demon Lord, Licht and Ferris, and then asks what happened and where the Eastern Demon Lord is. Aria hugs the girl and tells her to calm down, because it's already over and the girl has defeated him. She says that the girl is doing well. Thanks Rose for the praise. Ferris says that Rose got to him first after all. Licht says that, by the way, Aria defeated everyone else too. Aria says that Tice and the company have handled most of them. They are her best when it comes to destroying enemies. Aria asks Licht how everything went with them, because apparently, the opponent was not weak, even despite the support of Ferris. The young man replies that he did not reveal her ability until the last moment, but it seems that he went a little overboard. Aria notes his excellent foresight, but he would hardly have fooled the Eastern Demon Lord with this trick, because he would have learned about this ability. Licht asks if this is really the case. Aria says that the young man should not worry, because it happens. She shouts that everyone is doing well and today they will throw a feast. After a while, Rosa calls Licht and says that she has brought a fish. The young man thanks her for this. Ferris asks him to help them too. That evening, they celebrated the victory over the Eastern Demon Lord and the rebirth of the Aria Demon Army. At one point, Dorothy calls Licht and says that it's good that he tried his best today in every sense. The young man thanks her. He says he's terribly tired. Dorothy says it shows. Although she was not in the castle, the screams could be heard even from the street. The young man replies that this is natural because they fought to the death. Dorothy says it's good that they won. She really didn't think it would be so difficult for them to do it. The girl then asks Rose how strong this Eastern Demon Lord is. The girl replies that he was able to anticipate all her attacks, so she couldn't do much damage to him, but only suffered herself. Licht says he's strong. Then the young man thinks about how strong Aria is. Dorothy says, addressing Licht, if there was an Eastern ruler, then there was a Western one. The young man says that there are rumors that a long time ago the heroes sealed him. The girl says that if they suddenly fight against him, then this time she wants to see everything live. She says that if Licht comes out against him, then everything will end very quickly. The young man is against this fight. At this time, Aria, who is already amused, calls Licht to come to them and have a drink. Dorothy looked at the young man with eyes full of hope. The young man said that he would not fight against him, and she should not even dream about it. After that, a drunken Aria molested him, but that's a completely different story. After some time in the castle of the King of Men, the men made a report to him. They said there was still no response from the elves. They think that you should not expect a positive outcome. The king says that, apparently, only people can be trusted. He says he doesn't want to, of course, but they'll have to ask Lada Country for help. It's also a good chance to improve their relationship. The king is confident that they will not ignore this unknown dungeon. The men say that this is what was expected of the king. The king says that in any case, they need to get in touch with the king of Lada. The servant suggests sending an ambassador in this case. The king says Lada is a pretty closed country, and they will most likely send the ambassador back. In this case, Lada attaches great importance to adventurers. He offers to send his adventurers. The king is thinking. The servant apologizes and says it was a bad idea. The king says it's an interesting idea. The king continues and says that it would be nice to hear the adventurer's opinion about this country. Perhaps he will become their ambassador in building a relationship with Lada. The man says that then they will have to carefully select the adventurers. It may take a long time. The second man says they will start taking them away right now. The next day, Aria asks Licht if he wants to go to the human world. Licht did not hear what the girl just said and asks her about it again. The girl says that there is one interesting place in the human world. So does the young man want to go there? Licht sadly says that there is an interesting place. Then fine, but this is the same terrible country. Aria doesn't understand why the young man is acting like this, and then tells Licht not to worry. She says it doesn't matter, because this country has nothing to do with the young man anymore. He understands that Aria is talking about Lada Country. He tried many times to become an adventurer in that country, but all attempts were in vain. There were rumors that almost all the adventurers from that country were high-class warriors, but they could not confirm this information. Licht has bad memories of this country. He asks what is in this country, since Aria has become so interested. The girl winks and says that she still can't believe it herself. But just in case, she wants to clarify again. Is this the country of these people? Licht says he thinks so. Aria replies that the young man is not sure himself. Licht says if the girl wants to say that there is a possibility that the people of that country are actually demons. Aria says she's sorry to upset him. The young man asks why this is. Aria smiles and says, because the inhabitants of the country there are people, but their king, their ruler, is actually a demon. Licht is very surprised. He asks if the girl wants to say that he is holding power by force. Aria replies that he pretends to be human and lies as if nothing had happened. She was very surprised when she saw it for herself. Licht wonders how it happened, because there is always a noticeable difference between humans and demons. If the demon decided to rule the country of people, then surely there were problems on his way. The young man says that it turns out that demons are able to adapt to people. Aria says that's why she's so interested, and the fact that the ruler of the strange Lada is not a simple demon is a fact. She says that they will go there together, so the young man should not worry. She grabs his hand and tells him they're going to fly. The girl asks to hold her hand tighter. After a while, in the land of Lada, a male servant approaches the mistress and says that the adventurers are asking for her help. She asks what the girl will order. The beautiful girl said that they would help them in any way they could. She says that food is used as much as it pleases, but she will think about weapons later. The servant girl says that Mrs. Baran made a wise decision. She says the adventurers trust her very much. She is grateful to the Almighty that it is the lady who is their ruler. The girl says that she is glad that Anna is always with her. The maid says that someone like her does not deserve her praise, so she will follow them all her life. The girl asks the girl not to lie so sweetly, but the maid says that she always thinks about her. The girl says she was joking, and she knows that the girl will never lie to them. The girl says that in this case, she will have an important job now, so the girl could not leave her alone. Every day, Burns set aside 1 hour to be alone with herself. The girl told the servants that if anything happened, they should call her. The girl will take her leave. Suddenly, the maid stops the girl and says that she wanted to ask something, namely, why the Lada country has no ties and relationships with other countries. The girl says that this is because they do not want to break traditions, because the distinctive feature of Lada is that she pays special attention to adventurers. She asks the maid, because she too will not be happy if their number also decreases. The maid agrees and says that Mrs. Baran thought it all out that way, and then she apologizes for the stupid question. The girl goes to her room. She flops down on the bed and says that she is very tired. She turns around in bed and says that too many responsibilities have fallen on her. She thought being a queen was fun, but it turned out to be quite boring. She thought she could live in peace in the world of people. She also wonders why she only saved them. Then the girl hears someone. It was Aria who told Licht that they had arrived. Aria and Licht burst into the girl's room. She asks them to give their names. Otherwise, she will call security. Aria laughs and says that this is really a demon who asks for a helping hand from people. Bayan realizes that she has been found out. Licht asks Aria if she is sure that this girl is definitely a demon, because he sees only a human in front of him. Aria says that this girl is cheating on people like Licht all this time. Bert doesn't understand what Aria is talking about, and then she asks the girl how she realized what she really was, and in general, how they got here. Aria shows her aura, and Byrne gets scared out of his mind. Suddenly, smoke forms around Byrne, and then her ears and tail appear. Aria says that the girl's tail came out, and, as she thought, Byrne is a fox. Licht realizes that Byrne is really not a human being. Aria said that's what she said. Aria is aiming at Byrne's tail and says that. By the way, the tail is very impressive. She starts stroking him, and Byrne, blushing, asks not to do so. She tells Aria not to even think that she will get away with it after that. She says she is a noble fox. Aria smiles and says that she is the demon lord in general. Byrne freezes and looks at Aria, and then says that she is cheating on her out of the blue. Aria asks Licht to close his eyes. Then she snaps her fingers and Licht is torn apart, and his body just disappears into space. Byrne sees this and freezes in horror. Licht died. Aria asks if the girl can see now. She screams and asks the girl not to do it, because this guy was her partner. She wonders why it was necessary to kill him, because it's too much. At this point, Licht's magic is activated. He resurrects and asks why he was killed. Burn screams in horror. Aria asks Licht if it didn't hurt him. The young man says that's not the point at all. Burn asks Aria who they are and if Aria is really the demon lord. The girl says that's how she introduced herself from the very beginning. She then says that the truth is that Licht is human. Burn reflects on the fact that bloodlust and suppression of power, as well as Aria's lightning attack, are very unusual, and no matter how much she compares, she will not find her equal. The girl bows to Aria and says she apologizes profoundly for her behavior. She asks for forgiveness and calls Aria her mistress. Aria smiles and says that Burn is pretty smart, because she thought of merging with people. Licht tells Aria that she is amazing. The girl asks what he expected from her, because she is the Lord of Demons. Suddenly, the maid turns to Mrs. Burn and says that she heard some strange sounds, and then asks if something happened to the girl. Burn says that everything is fine, so she doesn't have to worry and go back to work. Anna says that she understood everything, and if something happens, Burn can always call her. Aria says she almost forgot why they came here. She looks at Burn and asks why the girl has merged with people. The girl lowers her ears and says that she thought that Veselov could live in the world of people, but in fact everything turned out to be wrong. Aria says she is amazed that the girl became a queen only because of such stupid motives. The girl expresses her gratitude to Aria, calling her mistress. Aria asks Burn if it's difficult to live in a human world. Burn gives a positive answer. She says she never would have thought queens would get so tired. Aria says that even a fool can understand that rulers have a hard job. However, she surprised her. Aria knew that some demons merge with humans, but this is the first time she sees the queen. Aria then asks if her partners are hiding somewhere. Byron says she thinks there are those in this country who are hiding from people. She says that's the kind of race they are. Licht says he didn't notice it at all. Aria says that she wants to have connections with the human world. So does Burn want to become her friend? The girl asks if it is really possible. Aria replies that it is possible, but foxes are generally a rare species. She asks if Licht is against it. The young man says he doesn't mind. It doesn't fit into his head that the demon lord is in touch with people. Burn tells them not to think that way, but she doesn't feel anything for people, so she wouldn't betray demons for anything. She asks if it's not difficult for Aria. Could she guarantee her safety? Aria says Burn doesn't have to worry about it and relies on her. Finally, the negotiations were over. Burn then turns to Licht and asks why he didn't die from the demon lord's attack. Aria says that Licht has an ability called Resurrection of the Dead. He can resurrect dead creatures and people. As the girl has already noticed, he can also resurrect himself. Aria also says that if Burn dies, he can resurrect her in a flash, so she can be grateful in advance. The girl is surprised and says that it turns out to be like immortality. For Burn, the guarantee of life looks much more attractive than any treasure, even after many years and dreams of an eternal fun life. Finally, her dreams came true. Aria waves her hand and says that next time she will come and taste something delicious. Anna comes into the room and asks Burn what happened after all, because she heard some strange noises. Burn says you shouldn't worry about it. The girl says that she is a servant of the mistress and as a person worries about her. Burn smiles. Anna says that they look pleased, and because of this, she is now also pleased. Burn asks Anna to come closer. He asks what the girl thinks about this country. The girl says that this is a wonderful country. There are a lot of good people and adventurers here. And the most important thing is that this country is run by Mrs. Burn. Burn calls Anna a good girl and then pats her on the head. She says that Anna's hair is sticking out a little and then asks her to hand her a comb. Burn then combs the girl's hair and asks her what she thinks not about the country, but about Burn. Anna smiles and says that Miss Burn is a wonderful person who cares about her, so she respects her more than anyone in the world. Burn smiles and says if she becomes a demon, will the girl follow her? Anna replies that she will definitely follow her. Thus, Licht and Aria found out that the Queen of Lada Country is actually a fox demon. Having shown her power as a demon lord, Aria forced herself to repair herself and built a friendly relationship with the Lada Country. A couple of days later, an envoy from a neighboring country arrived in Lada Country. The servant says that they had always sent messengers away before, but this one at all costs asks to meet with the ruler of the country. Until now, the Lada Country has frankly refused to have anything in common with other nations. This was due to the fact that Bayan was afraid of exposing her true appearance. Bayan asked the servant if the messenger had told her the details. The man gave a positive answer. The messenger said that it would be about a previously unknown dungeon. Burn was surprised. The servant continued and said that magic of such power emanates from the dungeon and that it cannot be ignored. There is also talk about this among adventurers now. The girl is swearing. The servant asks about what the girl just said. The girl covers her mouth with her sleeve and says she didn't say anything. Burn thought that this dungeon must be a dystopia. That is, the dungeon of the demon lord. And in this case, the neighboring country is their enemy. The servant asked Bayan what she had decided. He says that, of course, it was possible to refuse, but maybe they will help them in clearing this dungeon. Burn understands that if you refuse, then things will get worse at this rate. She also thinks that in another case, it would be better to kill all the adventurers of the neighboring country. Then the demon lord might praise her. The girl says she will meet this messenger. Anna asks the lady if it's worth just going to meet him, and what happens if the messenger is dangerous. The girl says she is worried about the mistress. Burn says it's alright. She says that even if the messenger attacks her, she will easily defeat him. But in her head, she thinks that human adventurers are just spitting for her. Anna is happy and says that everything is as expected from the mistress. Burn asks if she needs help, if Anna can save her. The girl clenches her fists and says that the mistress can count on her. Bayan covers her face with her sleeve and says what happens if she just sends the adventurers straight to the dungeon, and Mrs. Aria cleans them up herself. The messenger enters the ass and happily says that he is very grateful to meet Her Highness. He says that he is an envoy from the neighboring country of Lasaga, as well as an S-rank adventurer named Gate. The girl greets the young man and introduces herself, calling her name Burn. The girl says that the approximate essence of the conversation has already been reported to her by her servant. She asks if the man wanted to discuss the unknown dungeon with her. The young man rejoices and says that everything is exactly like that. He's glad it won't take her long. Burn asks if they really plan to enlist the help of his state. The young man laughs and says that Burn really sees through him. He says they sent 4 of their adventurer fighters there earlier, but none of them came back. Gate says there's probably a monster in this dungeon. If we leave everything as it is, then he is afraid that danger will await not only the human world, but the whole earth as a whole. He says that at the moment a lot of adventurers are discussing this dungeon, and he, as one of them, can assure the girl of this. Bayan asks Mr. Gate if he is an adventurer. The young man says that he has been working with them for many years, but it seems to him that this case is unique. Given the strength of the adventurers who did not return, it would be expected if something like a demon lord dwells in this dungeon. It is said that there has been activity in the eastern demon lord area recently. Burn asks if the young man wants to say that there is a demon lord in Dystopia. In that case, this is a very difficult opponent. Gate says that if this is really the demon lord, then he is not averse to defeating him at the cost of his life. There is a sword in the forest, the sharpness of which increases in proportion to the damage done to you. If you make the most of it, then you can certainly compete with the demon lord. Burn thinks that even so, this Aria has a licht that will easily resurrect her, although even this guy won't be able to touch her with a finger. Burn says that, in that case, she can rely on Gate, because she believes his eyes. She says she will provide them with some of her adventurers, even though there may be casualties. The man was very happy. He bows to her, banging his forehead on the table, and says that he is very grateful to Queen Burn. The girl asks when they plan to attack the dungeon. The man says that the preparations on their part have already been completed. He says they can move out as Queen Burn orders. The girl says that she will need a little time to prepare their fighters. The girl asks if this arrangement suits a man. Gate replies that everything is fine. He did not pick up adventurers himself for a long time, who would fight side by side. Bayan thinks he's using the allotted time to report the entire conversation to Miss Aria. Gate says he is counting on the help of Queen Burn and swears that they will definitely return victorious. The girl giggles and says she can't wait. At this time, in Dystopia, Dorothy turned to Licht and asked where he got these fruits from. The young man replied that he had received a gift from Iris and Tisa when he came to visit them. He says he won't eat everything, so he'll share it with the girl. The girl says that he quickly understood everything. In this case, she suggests that he eat them together, because she herself will not eat everything alone. Dorothy says that after all, the enemies don't come. Her ghosts are scouting the area, so she doesn't have much to do. At first, they carefully went around the entire dungeon, but there were no enemies anywhere, so they haven't had any work lately. Licht says that on the other hand, this dungeon was originally without monsters. Licht, on the contrary, likes to live in peace. The girl says that she also likes a quiet life. You can get tired of constant battles quickly. Dorothy even thinks that while they are resting, Rose is doing everything for them. The girl says that she wanted to help Rose recently, but she said that everything was fine and refused. Dorothy thought it was some kind of job that they couldn't do. Licht says Dorothy is a vampire, so he can't even imagine what kind of job there might be. Dorothy even assumes that Rose is avoiding them. It upsets her. Licht says that Rose is not one of those who will just hate them so much, so he asks Dorothy not to worry. The girl asks if Licht has become so friendly with her. The young man replied that he was not sure about it himself, but perhaps she did not like him. Licht says he has a good relationship with Ferris. Dorothy calls Ferris strange and says that she didn't really communicate with her. By the way, she doesn't leave the room much. The girl asks if she can come in. Licht says that she thinks that she has a lot of free time lately, so Dorothy can come to her, and Ferris will be happy about it. The next moment, Aria bursts into the room, kicking the doors off her feet. She is happy and shouts that people are going to clean up Dystopia, so everyone should get ready. Licht starts to get visibly nervous, and then asks if people are really going to attack them. Aria replies that it seems to her that they are only going to their deaths. The girl says that according to the proper information, they intend to defeat Dystopia. Licht is surprised and asks if people really don't know fear at all. Then he asks the girl where she got this information from in the first place. Aria replies that Byrne has reported everything to her. Apparently, the country of Lysaga decided to enlist her help. Licht says that the country of Legas is very annoying. Apparently, Licht has not yet managed to completely forget about the country that expelled him. Meanwhile, Aria says that, unfortunately, she has not yet managed to find out about the exact number of enemy troops. So she asks Licht, because he must know something, because he used to live there himself. Licht thinks about it and says that even though the girl says so, he only knows that there are very few female adventurers there. Aria asks Dorothy and says that maybe the girl knows something at least. The girl apologizes and says that she has been there too long and it is difficult for her to remember useful information. Aria says that, in this case, nothing can be done, so she asks the girl not to worry. Licht asks why Dorothy gets special treatment and he doesn't. Aria says that, in any case, the victory is for them, so they should not worry. Byron will be making adjustments to the time of the invasion of Dystopia. Licht asks if she's really going to do this. He notices that the girl has become so integrated into the role of the queen. Aria says that's it, and then asks Licht and Dorothy to be ready. If they were planning to try something new in combat, then now is the time. The girl goes to sleep. Dorothy suggests that Licht tests the very bazooka she told him about. The young man said he refused, and then wished Aria a good night, but abruptly recalled that it was still only day. Dorothy says that they are demons, which means that their rhythm of life is completely different. Dorothy says that, for sure, the demon lord is most active at night. Aria interrupts them and says that she just works day and night in reverse order. Dorothy apologizes to Licht. Licht tells Aria to try to establish a healthy lifestyle for herself. Dorothy says that everything was eventually pinned on them. Licht tells her that they need to get everyone else together first. Sometime later, in the Bat Cave, in the halls, Rose meets Licht and says that she has prepared coffee for him. She asks if Dorothy will have black coffee. Dorothy agrees and thanks Dorothy. Licht also thanks the girl and says that she shouldn't serve them like that. Rose says that coffee is especially delicious after a long day at work. Licht says that he constantly thinks about whether the girl is working too hard and refuses to help. Tai says that since there will be a lot of opponents, then wouldn't it be better for them to act as usual? She asks what Mr. Licht thinks. The young man replies that this is exactly how it is, and the girls will act as usual, because it will be better that way. Iris tells Sistra that it's a piece of cake, and they'll try very hard. Ties agrees with Iris and says that the main thing is not to oversleep the most important thing. The girl replies that it is difficult, but she will make an effort. Suddenly, Licht notices the trembling of the grove and says that she will receive instructions personally from the Demon Lord Aria. The girl is happy and asks if this is really the case. Licht says that apparently, the girl will be scouted. Rose clenches her fists on her chest and says that the Demon Lord hopes for her, so she needs to properly meet her expectations. Iris tells Rosa to try her best, because they are rooting for her. The girl thanks Iris and says that she will give her all. The girls ask Ferris what the girl will do and ask if she is back on the team with Licht. The girl clings to the young man and says that everything is exactly like that, because they have a common fate with Licht. Tice says that, apparently, Ferris has become very attached to Mr. Licht. The young man asks Tisa not to joke like that, and Dorothy, meanwhile, says something under her breath. Tice turns to Dorothy and asks her to try her best too. The girl is embarrassed and says that's exactly what it is. Tais gets up and says that since the roles have been assigned, it's time to return to their places. She thanks Rosa for the coffee and says it was very tasty. The girl thanks Tisa for the praise. Iris unwraps it and says that the apple tea was very tasty and asks Rose to treat her to it again next time. Rose waves and thanks Iris for the praise. Lick says it's time for them to go too. Rose asks what she should do then. She thinks it would probably be better to prepare traps. Licht asks Rose to rest, and he will do all the work himself. He says Ferris will help too. The girl says that the young man deceived her. After a while, Tais and Iris were relaxing in their new tree house, which Rose had apparently built for them. Tais wakes Iris up and asks her to wake up. The girl opens her eyes and then rubs them with her small hands. Iris asks to let her sleep for another 5 minutes. Tais says that this is not allowed, because if they are late, then Rose will be very angry. Iris gets up and Tais calls her a good girl. Iris jumps off the bed and summons a squad of fairies. Tais asks if her sister is sleepy. Iris replies that she is a little sleepy, but should be fully awake very soon. Tais says it's all because she stays up late. She offers Iris to climb on top of her so that Tais can carry her. Tais says that Iris has recovered a little, but the girl replies that if she says one more word and the girl gets angry. Iris suggests that her sister hurry up. Iris says that the opponents are already advancing. Tais smiles and says that everything is fine because Rose will delay them at the exit, and Licht and the others are already nearby. The girl says their time will come after that. She says that, most likely, the remaining troops went along a side road, and Iris had already sent her fairies there. She says that those fairies she sent to the entrance have the effect of brutality. If the opponents have no resistance to him, they will start attacking each other. Tais says that, in that case, there should be a bloodbath at the exit now. At one point, Iris says that one of her fairies has died. There are quite skilled warriors in the troop. Tais says that's all they can do for now. She hopes that Mr. Licht and the others are okay. Tais says they need to hurry. At that time, people attacked each other and did not understand why they were doing this, because they were allies. At this time, Rose was dealing with one adventurer after another. The warriors were scared and said that there was a real monster in front of him. Rose was smiling sweetly. Suddenly, one of the warriors began to feel unwell. The next moment, he stood up and began to attack his former colleague. He pushes the man away and asks if this vampire bit him. The man thinks that his former ally is different from everyone else who went berserk. Even if he is the same, he is very aggressive. The man had never seen such a thing before. He cuts off his ally's head and asks what's going on, and if he's been infected with rabies too. Suddenly, a sparkling sphere appears from the body of a fallen warrior. Suddenly, Rose appears behind the man and says that he finished off her puppet. The man dodges and asks when the vampire managed to get close so quickly. The girl says there are too many of them, humans. Some even managed to break into Dystopia. She asks the man for reinforcements, but he swings his sword and orders Rose to be silent. The girl deftly evades and asks what about reinforcements. The man says that how would he know about it? Rose abruptly approaches and asks seriously if reinforcements will come or not. The man chuckles and says he'll leave it to the girl's imagination. Rose says she realized they weren't coming anymore. In that case, she can leave this place. The man realized that if this went on, they would be dead. If he loses now, then the girl will surely finish off all those who passed on. The human troops are strong, but there is no chance against this monster. Rose says that Iris and Tais will sort out the people, and she can already move on. The man orders her to stop. Rose asks what he needs. The man tells her not to dare ignore her opponent, because she is destined to die. The girl says that she thinks, on the contrary, a man is going to die today. A glowing sphere penetrates into his body. Suddenly his whole body shuddered, and he fell to his knees, and his eyes clouded. Rose sighs, because the man is no longer a tenant. Licht and Ferris walked through the tunnels of Dystopia. Suddenly, they saw people in the distance. Licht realized that they had made their way inside. The young man asks the girl to be on guard. Ferris replies that she understood. The girl asks if the young man will be able to fight one-on-one. Licht replies that he can do it, because he was an S-rank adventurer after all. So he thinks it won't be difficult to defeat an ordinary soldier. Suddenly, Ferris asks to look at the man in front. It was Gate. Licht says he has seen this soldier before. His name was Gate. Ferris asks if this man is known for anything. Licht replies that he is well known among people. Licht thinks that who would have thought that he would meet him here. An S-rank adventurer who has reached the top and is now the right hand of the country of people and has medals for various services that only 3 people in the whole country have received. It would not be an exaggeration to say that everyone in Lesag knows him. If you compare him and Licht, then Licht is just a small fish, and Gate is a shark. Licht turns to Ferris. The girl says she understood. She steps forward. Gate thinks about what this little girl is doing here. It is also strange that she approaches him completely unarmed. The girl asks if the young man will come closer. Ferris chuckles to himself. She then snatches a dagger from under her skirt and attacks Gate directly. Gate thinks she's aiming for the heart, but in fact she's aiming for a weapon. Gate kicks the girl away and knocks out her weapon with his foot. He wrings her hands and thinks what is wrong with her, because she is too weak. He turns to Licht and asks what the guy is up to here. Why does he say that he has already seen him somewhere? He says that Licht is a man, and then asks what he is doing here. Then he asks the young man to identify himself. But Licht replies that who knows. He grabs the dagger that Ferris dropped and heads straight for the man. Gate grabs his dagger and grabs his arm. He says he has a question for both of them, so he will make them answer all the questions. Gate takes a rope and binds Licht and Ferris. Licht asks Ferris if she is okay. The girl gives a positive answer. Gate takes the dagger and says he has the first question, and then plunges the dagger into Licht's shoulder. He asks the first question and says, what kind of place is this? He was supposed to be at the entrance to the dungeon, but at some point he ended up here. The second question he asks is who Ferris and Licht are. He pays special attention to Licht and says that he has seen him before in their country. He demands to tell him why the young man is here. Gate then suggests that the young man is in pain, and he is not up to his questions. He says if he were an ordinary person, he would already be vomiting in pain and begging him to stop. Then he says that he really overdid it, because Ferris is already silent too. He smiles and says that a normal girl would have burst into tears a long time ago, if only she hadn't been touched. He turns to Ferris and says that she has a question for her, so he gives her time. He takes her by the hair and thinks that she has gone mad because of fear. He asks Ferris if she hears him. Ferris turns to him and looks at him with an intimidating look. Gate lets go of her hair and then shouts for her to answer his question, and he asks Licht who he is. Then Rose rushes into the room and shouts the names of Licht and Ferris. Rosa screams that Gate is finished now, and then she rushes into the attack and kicks the man in the chin. Licht is surprised that Gate is now paralyzed. Rose was able to defeat him with one punch. The girl rushes to Licht and says that she was very worried. Licht asks the girl to untie the rope. Rose begins to cry and says, apologizing that she did not make it in time, and because of her he is injured. She says that the demon lord ordered her to check on Licht, but she was too slow. The young man says that everything is already fine, so he asks the girl to calm down and untie them. After a while, Ferris apologizes to Licht for being completely useless. The young man asks the girl not to take it into her head, because he couldn't do anything. Then the girls notice Licht's wound. Ferris tells them to go to her room, and she will treat the wound. Rose tells Licht that she will take them there. The girl throws the young man on her back and tells him not to worry. She has already cleaned up all the other enemies. Licht asks if the girl really doesn't need to stay here anymore. Rose replies that the bats have told her that they no longer hear human sounds. Ferris says it's not interesting. At this point, Aria says that as she thought, Iris and Tice have already done everything for her. She walks down the corridor, which is filled with corpses. The girl says that there are too many people and cleaning will be quite difficult. Suddenly, someone grabs her leg. She immediately uses her time binding ability, and then picks up the man by the hand and says that he is already dead, and she hoped very much. However, since so many died at once, it is unlikely that they will attack again soon. Then the girl leaves and says that she has a great idea to give everyone a vacation. After the battle is over and Rose rescues Licht and Ferris from captivity, Aria, the demon lord, decides to give all three of them a vacation. The characters are sitting in the headquarters in the middle of the sea and discussing the good news about their vacation over lunch. Licht is genuinely surprised that Aria decided to give it to them. He is very pleased that he can relax now. Rose listens to him attentively. Licht asks Rosa how many days she will rest, to which the girl replies that her vacation will last 4 days. The young man says that he will also rest for 4 days and notices that the girl should have asked for a longer vacation. Rose blushes a little and asks Licht to listen to her. Licht asks in surprise what happened. You can see from his face that the hero does not know what words to expect from the interlocutor. Suddenly, Rose says that she would like to fly home for a vacation. After these words, silence reigns in the dining room. Licht is very surprised to hear the word home from Rose. The young man asks again if he misheard this word, to which the girl says that he understood everything correctly. It is very difficult for the hero to believe that Rose has just uttered the word home. He remembers that he had never heard it from her before. Licht cautiously reminds Rose that she has been dead for 100 years, and perhaps her home has not existed for a long time. The girl replies that she understands this, but adds that she wants to check if this is really the case. Rose also adds that for vampires, 100 years is not such a big number, since they live long enough. The girl enthusiastically says that she is sure that her parents are alive. Licht is a little surprised and doesn't know how to answer. Licht continues to speak confidently. He shares with the girl that it would be very good if it turned out to be true, since they will surely be happy after so many years of separation. Rose is even more inspired by this speech. Rose gathers her thoughts and suddenly says that she would like to invite the hero to visit, to which he is very surprised and immediately does not find what to answer. Licht's expression reflects genuine surprise and misunderstanding. He asks the girl why she invites him to visit. Rose confusedly explains that since Licht resurrected her, she is now his debtor. The girl also adds that she decided to introduce the young man to her mother and father. Rose feels awkward. She waits a little and, without waiting for an answer, asks to find out if she can't do it. For the first few seconds, Licht doesn't know what to answer either. He, a little confused, replies that, in general, it is possible. The young man modestly and a little scared says that he hopes for the absence of anger in Rose's parents, since he represents them as not the kindest guys. The girl happily says that he shouldn't worry about it. Rose enthusiastically says that she is confident in the kindness of her parents. She declares without hesitation in her voice that they will give Licht the warmest welcome. Licht exhales with relief. It seems to him that after this information, it became much easier. He thanks the girl. Licht cautiously asks if he is the only one invited to visit. Rose awkwardly replies that she also invited Dorothy home. The girl says that her plans include flying home the next morning, and she wonders if this suits Licht, to which he replies that everything is fine. He also asks Rose not to stay up late before going to bed. Rose, embarrassed and a little indignant, replies that she is not Iris to pull off such actions. The next morning, Licht, Dorothy, and Rose fly home to the ladder. They are carried by small bats attached to the backs of the guys. Licht dejectedly asks Rose if it is possible to get to the right place in another way. Dorothy is surprised to answer that if they get to their destination by land on their own, it will take much longer than a flight. Licht says quietly that he understands, but there is some dissatisfaction in his voice. Dorothy, humming something, notices that Licht is simply afraid of heights, and if he gets used to it, it will become much easier for the young man to fly. Licht is displeased to notice that she is used to flying suspiciously fast. Dorothy decides to change the subject and suggests that we talk about something else. Licht asks what you can even talk about in flight. The girl, looking towards the other, replies that she would like to know more information about Rose's childhood. Licht adds that he would also be interested to know more about it. Rose smiles and modestly replies that she often cried as a child. She remembers how mom and dad constantly spoiled her because of this. She clearly remembers a lot after the question and looks thoughtfully into the distance. Licht notes that he also remembers the last time Rose cried, and it was only recently. The girl is very embarrassed and says that it was because Licht was very badly injured. As they fly and talk, Rose notices that, unlike her, Dorothy never seems to cry. In response, another girl says that she used to cry a lot because of the mentor who took her as an apprentice in the girl's early childhood. Dorothy also says that now she and her mentor remember this time with a smile, as these memories have long been warm for both of them. Licht says that it seems to him that it was very difficult for the girl before. After that, Dorothy also adds that they soon rebelled against the kingdom and were killed. This ending of the story confuses Licht, and he asks why this story is considered funny. Licht interrupts Dorothy and says that he has heard a story that Dorothy died while participating in an angry battle with demons, to which she replies that this story is not true, and in fact she was attacked while she was sleeping. Licht, dejected and a little scared, says that Dorothy's story is a real horror. Suddenly, Rose decides to change the topic of conversation to a more pleasant and carefree one. She asks the guys what kind of animals they like. The girl says to herself that she likes dogs. Suddenly, Dorothy notices that Rose herself looks very much like a dog in the literal sense of these words. The girl gives an example of a situation where Rose fawns in front of Aria and is very happy when she is praised. Rose, not knowing what to say to this, calls Dorothy a cat, explaining that she always has secretive thoughts that are not easy to guess. Dorothy asks, perplexed, if it was a compliment. The flight lasted for several more minutes, until finally Rose noticed something on the ground and pointed at it with her finger. The heroes look down and see a huge white castle below them. Rose happily declares that they have finally reached her house. The surprise and delight of Licht and Dorothy is very difficult to put into words. They can't believe they're seeing a building like this, which is also their friend's house. Licht thinks to himself that Rose may be the famous mistress among vampires. He calls Dorothy by name And she responds. Rose looks at the huge castle and is sincerely glad that everything is all right with her family home. The girl says that she is so happy about this news that her breath catches in her throat. The heroes descend to the ground after a long and tedious flight on bats. Rose is the first to rush to the castle door, since this is her home. Licht and Dorothy exchange uncertain glances. Rose, full of inspiration, opens the doors, sparing no effort, and goes inside the building. A lot of surprised maids immediately gather around the girl. They exclaim that it is difficult for them to believe in the return of Mrs. Rose. The maids can't hold back their tears. They smile, rub the little drops in the corners of their eyes, and repeat their mistress's name over and over again. Rose can't help but smile on her face. She puts her right hand to her heart and apologizes for making the girls worry. The girl comes closer to the maids and says that she would really like to meet her parents again. They fuss and reply that they will immediately take her to her father and mother. Dorothy notices that she and Licht seem to be superfluous in this place. The young man answers her that at such moments it is necessary to maintain a good mood. It is impossible to behave inappropriately, otherwise they will be considered rustic. Licht is already from the village. Rose turns her head to Licht and asks if everything is okay, to which the young man says that he did not want to make her worry and asks for forgiveness. One of the maids interrupts the dialogue between Rose and Licht. She politely invites the girl to go with her to her parents. Finally, Rose and her friends come to a huge wooden door taller than a man and stop. The maid is preparing to open it. One of the castle's many doors creaks open in front of Licht, Rose, and Dorothy. The children see Rose's parents in front of them. A tall, dark-haired, bearded father with a monocle and a beautiful, blonde, short woman. A mother who is very similar to her daughter. They exclaim that they are very glad to see Rose again. A happy girl runs up to her parents. They cannot believe that they see their beloved daughter alive, which they are incredibly happy about. The father leans over to Rosa and joyfully tells her that in honor of her return, they will arrange a grand dinner with a fan, consisting only of the girl's favorite dishes. She happily replies that she is very glad to hear it. Rose says she was a little busy, and therefore couldn't tell her parents about her resurrection right away. She adds that she was finally able to return home, as there was enough time for this. Suddenly, Rose's father notices the girl's friends behind her back. He asks if Licht and Dorothy are his daughter's guests. Mom is overjoyed to hear about Rose's friends. Her amazement, mixed with happiness, is very difficult to put into words. Rose's mom says it's hard for her to believe that her daughter has finally become so independent, and she feels immensely happy about it. Licht takes a close look at the family reunion. He does not know how to act in such situations, and therefore does not say anything. Rose says she owes a lot to these guys. The father happily says that his daughter's guests can feel at home in the castle. He also adds that it is worth greeting the guests properly. Mama Rose modestly and sweetly offers Licht and Dorothy to live with their family, since in this situation they will be able to see their daughter every day, which would be very good. The father replies to his wife that this is a good idea, but first you need to listen to their story. Rose blushes and asks her mother to wait for something, to which she replies that her daughter may not continue the phrase, since she has already understood everything. The girl is genuinely surprised that her mother understood her in half a word. Mom laughs kindly at her daughter's reaction. It seems to Licht that his parents cherish Rose too much, but he decides to keep quiet about it. Dorothy, Licht, Rose, and her parents finally find themselves sitting together at a sumptuously set dining table. The first two are very surprised by this. Dorothy turns to Licht and says that the food on the table looks like a work of art and it's a pity to touch it. The young man suggests that his girlfriend just sit in silence and not touch anything, as this is the best thing they can do. The father hears the girl addressing a friend, calling him by name. He asks for the correctness of his name, having previously named him. Rose's parents decide to introduce themselves to their friends. It turns out that the father's name is Alias, and his wife, Rosa's mother, is Camilla. Camilla says that she is very glad to meet her daughter's friends, to which they say that it is mutual. Camille notices that, apparently, Rosa owes Licht. She remembers that her daughter once served the demon lord. Therefore, the young man should be her companion in the service. Licht confirms this. Alias asks how his daughter is coping in everyday life. He adds that he hopes that everything is going smoothly. Rose says that it is not worth asking her friends about this, as such questions are embarrassing. While Dorothy is already ready to give out some information, Licht still does not know what to answer. Rose looks at the young man hopefully. Licht says with dignity and confidence that Rose does an excellent job with absolutely any job. She always does any errands, and therefore her partners love and respect the girl very much. Camilla, barely holding back tears, says that her daughter is really perfect, and she is very touched by this. Alias compliments her words, saying that they had no reason to worry and strict upbringing gave the result. Licht is surprised by the word strict. Camilla asks perplexedly why her daughter returned home only after 100 years, and says that it was possible to contact the family in any other way, because everyone was worried about the girl. Rose gathers her thoughts. Finally, having gathered herself, the girl replies that the real reason for her absence was that Rose had been dead for this long time. Parents are genuinely surprised by such words and ask what they mean if she is sitting in front of them alive now. Rose replies that something unknown killed her 100 years ago, and her remains lay in the depths of the dungeon for a long time until they were resurrected by Licht. Camilla does not find meaning in her daughter's words. She cannot believe that someone killed her daughter, and then a young man resurrected her. Rose's mother also adds that no one can resurrect a vampire, and Rose should know this. Rose proudly says that there is such a person, and his name is Licht. She also doesn't forget to mention that he managed to resurrect the Demon Lord. Camille and Alias can't believe it. For many years, they have been convinced of the exact opposite. Rose's father is in shock. He does not want to believe that his daughter was dead for 100 years until she was resurrected by an unknown person. Rose calmly says that he understood everything correctly, but makes it clear that there is nothing wrong with that, since she is alive now. Licht understands how difficult it is for Rose's parents to accept the fact that she died suddenly and has been dead for 100 years. He glances at Dorothy, but she doesn't say anything. While there is an awkward silence in the room, Alias thinks that he will definitely find and kill the man who did this to his daughter. He also doesn't know what he should do with the person who resurrected her. Alias remembers that he is experiencing a familiar feeling. He felt the same way when he met the Demon Lord. He recalls that once the Demon Lord wanted to take his daughter, Rose, to be his servant. Rose's father goes deep into his thoughts. Suddenly, he realizes that Licht is also serving the Demon Lord. Suddenly, a slightly unusual, but quite logical thought comes to his head to marry his daughter and Licht. Rose's father pulls himself away from such thoughts, considering them too hasty a conclusion. He turns to Licht and says that he does not know how he can thank the young man. Alias decides to think about how to thank the young man. He understands that this will take a decent amount of time, so he asks Licht to wait. The young man replies that there is nothing wrong with that. Dinner in the family circle finally took place after 100 years. Alias notices that the conversation turned out to be too heavy, so it's better to replace it with food. He urges the guests not to be shy and start eating. The guests and Rose's parents are still sitting at the set table. Alias turns to Licht and asks his forgiveness for the fact that the young man had to travel so far. The hero replies that it is not worth apologizing for this, because he himself does not see anything terrible in this situation. Rose's father, holding a glass in his hand, he calmly says that he never ceases to be surprised by listening to the young man's story. Alias says that it is very difficult for him to believe that Licht was able to resurrect not only the Demon Lord, but also others. Licht, hearing about the Demon Lord, decides to ask how Rose met Aria in the first place. Alias replies that it seemed to him that vampires and demons almost never got along with each other and were always opponents. Rose's father says he will never forget the day he met the Demon Lord. He also says that their whole family is in debt to Aria. The man remembers how then the Rose family was surrounded by more than 100 vampire hunters. Alias and Camille fought as best they could, but they weren't able to do it for long. Rose's parents begged the hunters to let at least their daughter live, but they would not listen to the vampires. Upon hearing this, the hunters specifically began to aim and attack the Rose. Licht realizes that it was probably at this moment that the Demon Lord came to the rescue, and Alias confirms his assumption. The man recalls that when the hunters continued to attack Rose, suddenly the Demon Lord appeared behind them. At first, Rose's parents thought that she would join their enemies, but suddenly Aria began to attack the hunters. Licht, hearing this story, says he understands Aria. He looks very sincere when he says it. Alias keeps talking. He remembers what the Demon Lord looked like. Rose's father says that suddenly Aria did something extraordinary. The man says he remembers how suddenly, in one moment, all the hunters were lying dead on the ground. The whole area was littered with bodies. Alias says that the whole family was very surprised that the Demon Lord saved his vampire opponents. He adds that he did not know what Aria's intentions were. The man says that after this incident, the Demon Lord became a real hero for little Rose. A puzzle is forming in Licht's head, and he understands why Rose is so devoted and respects Aria at the moment. The young man decides to ask what happened after the Demon Lord rebuffed the hunters and saved Rose's family. Alias replies that they, of course, thanked Aria. To this, as Alias remembers, The demon lord responded by asking for a favor in return for help. She wanted Rose to be her companion. Lick says that such an act really suits Aria. Elias continues by saying that he and Camille were worried, since it was about their only daughter at the time. But Rose bowed to Aria and agreed to be her companion. Licht thinks peacefully that the demon lord has managed to see the talent in little Rose. The man says that the family has always respected Rose's choice, so no one objected to her decision. He also adds that he considers the family's decision to be correct so far. The young man confirms this with a smile on his face. Alias decides to ask how. In turn, Licht is related to the demon lord and mentions that he remembers that people have always been at enmity with demons. Licht's face instantly darkens after the question. He is silent for a short time and soon responds that his act is revenge on people. The man is genuinely surprised by this answer. Licht says that he has not yet told even Aria about the motive for his action. The young man explains that he cannot forgive people after they completely ruthlessly banished Licht from his world. Licht confidently says that he will not back down from his people under any circumstances. His face radiates the purest confidence. Alias realizes that Licht really had a good reason to help the demon lord. The man decides to ask the young man if he can help him, but does not have time to do so, as he is interrupted by Rose. She approaches Licht from behind and very interested asks what is so important her father is talking about with the young man. Alias replies that he and Licht are talking about the old days and asks the young man to confirm this, to which he agrees. Rose says she understood and apologizes for interrupting the conversation. Rose wishes her father and Licht good night and, tired after a long flight, slowly goes to her room to go to bed. Alias turns to Licht and says that it seems to him that they are very much engaged in a conversation and it's time to end it. Licht thanks Rosa's father for everything. Licht goes to the room to rest, but suddenly Dorothy calls out to him and asks the young man to wait. Licht apologizes to the girl for walking too fast, to which she asks him to walk slower. The two of them arrange a walk through the old vampire castle, where their mutual friend has lived since childhood. The heroes say that even the most ordinary corridor sparkles, as it is polished to a shine in this castle, and they do not know if it is possible to walk on the carpet in street shoes. One of them notices that the castle is full of things that should not be touched, although Rosa has allowed it. One of the guys offers to visit the very place that Rosa mentioned, if they can find it. In response to the offer, the other agrees, saying that the library in this castle should be huge. Licht notes that there must be a lot of different books in it, and therefore everyone will find something to their liking. Dorothy hopes that this will indeed turn out to be the case. The girl asks her friend where they should go, to which he replies that he does not know himself, so he suggests asking the inhabitants of the castle for directions. Suddenly, one of the girls working as maids in the castle appears behind Licht. She asks if the young man called her. Licht asks the girl if she is one of the maids in the castle, to which she replies that she is. She introduces herself, and it turns out that her name is Kano. Kano tells the heroes that Rose asked to show them the right way, and the maid hopes that she will be useful in this request. Licht and Dorothy thank the girl. Licht turns to Kano, says that he and Dorothy would like to walk to the library, and asks if this room is far away. Kano replies that it's not far at all, and offers to bring the guys to her. The maid leads the companions through the intricate corridors of the castle, calling each time which turn to go where. Finally, the three of them reach the library and go inside. The room turns out to be huge. There are many different books inside. Dorothy is amazed and delighted to say that the library is full of books that are more than 200 years old, which cannot but surprise. Dorothy, humming something to herself, begins to enthusiastically look at a variety of books, asking if there is anything on necromancy in the library. Licht calls out to the girl, but it's useless. Kano notices that the girl must be very interested in science. Licht agrees with Kano. Suddenly, his gaze falls on a beautiful book with a jewel in the middle, which stands alone on the counter. He asks if he can see this book. The book is upholstered in the skin of some kind of reptile, and in the very center of its cover is a huge dark gemstone. Kano says that Licht, of course, can look at this book. Licht realizes that this book is obviously different from any other in the library. It turns out that its cover is made of dragon skin, and the book itself is encrusted with precious stones. He slowly picks up the book and examines it. The young man does not know what to expect from her content. He opens the book and sees something there that he never expected to see in it. The book contains many photos of Rose, starting with those where she is still a child, and ending with the latest time. Licht understands that this album is dedicated to the story of Rose's growing up, and carefully examines it. Kano is in a hurry to find out Licht's opinion about the photo album. She is very excited, and she is genuinely interested to know his thoughts. Kano remembers how long ago her mistress Rose was very cheerful and restless and constantly ran after the maids. Licht is surprised and chuckles that Rose also once had such a period in her life. Kano recalls that when Rose was injured, the whole castle was on her ears afterwards. As everyone in it was worried about her condition, the maid says that she likes the current calm and reasonable Rose, but she also loves the past version of her. Suddenly, Kano breaks off and apologizes for saying such things. Licht replies that everything is fine. He sees another series of photographs and asks if they relate to that time. Kano says that the young man is right, and one of them shows Rose getting sick, and the other shows her sleeping. Licht understands that he can learn a lot of new things. Suddenly, while Licht is looking at the photos and thinking about Rose, Kano turns to him, pulling the young man out of his thoughts. She hands the hero a camera and says that she would like to see Rose working for the Demon Lord, hinting that next time Licht would capture this moment. Kano also adds that, of course, he should not do anything for free, and for such a young man will definitely receive a reward. The maid begins to enthusiastically ask what he needs. While mentioning people's money and treasures, Licht, fussing, replies that he doesn't need anything. Surprised, Kano asks if he is sure of what he is giving up and asks him to think better. Licht asks if he just needs to capture Rose at work.